mute your cell phones, please, so we don't have that interruption. I want to welcome all those that are joining us on the live stream. We are still in that mode, unfortunately, but we're glad to have you folks listening in and being part of our meeting. At this time, I would ask that you stand for our pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, you have in your packet the minutes of our April 13th meeting. We've got an opportunity to review those. If there are no corrections, I need a motion to approve those minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I motion that we approve the April of last meeting agenda.
All right, we have a motion to approve the minutes as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
On the agenda, we do I have one deletion. Item E, that was the economic development report. We will not address that today. That's the only other change I have to the agenda that you have before you. Anyone else have any corrections, additions, deletions? If not, we need a motion to adopt the amended agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I make that motion.
Motion to adopt the amended agenda. All in favor say aye.
If you could y'all raise your hand when you make the motions, because it's easier for Jenny to do the minutes.
Okay, we can do that. Did I call for it? Yes, I did call for it. Thank you.
Sorry, sir.
Our first business this morning is a public hearing on the authorization to acquire property rights by condemnation for public purposes. Mr. Slade, do you want to take us through that before we open the public hearing?
Yes, sir. Comments about condemnation. Condemnation has kind of got a black eye for those who don't understand it. I don't know if you remember a case in 2002 in New London, Connecticut, where the land was condemned for economic development. That went to the U.S. Supreme Court. That case generated a lot of legislative changes that made it more difficult to acquire land through condemnation. So condemnation is not always looked on favorably. But I would tell you, if there weren't condemnation rights, there would be no roads built, there would be no utility lines built, water and sewer. So it is a very necessary governmental right, no question about that. The issue in Connecticut was that it was being used for economic development purposes, not public infrastructure. So it's absolutely necessary. In the case of the new school that's being built here, there was a need to acquire property rights along the public road to improve that public road. There were 14 that were needed. We started out with 12, but two pieces of property got separated, and there were 14 needed. The first challenge to a government is to try to deal with the property owners and explain the situation, and ideally acquire their property voluntarily and hopefully to their pleasure. That doesn't always work out. But the most difficult part, I think, in condemnation is the person who goes out and negotiates with the landowners. Because if that person does a good job, it goes well. And if that person doesn't, it doesn't go so well. There's a fellow in the room here who has a wealth of experience, Wayne Carter, who did the Ridge Road, which was very challenging and very difficult and ended well. As you know, that road's been improved. In this one, I just wanted to acknowledge Paul Nichols. He took it upon himself to deal with the property owners. He did it very effectively. We acquired of the 14, 10 voluntarily. The other 4 could not be acquired voluntarily. It was not possible. And the reason is typically there are owners whose identity and of course whereabouts, if you don't know their identity, are unknown. When that happens, the only way to get good title is to file a condemnation proceeding. We intend to do that. And these are, I hope they will remain, but they're certainly intended to be friendly condemnations. The only issue really is that we have to get good title of the property, and we cannot do it voluntarily. So this is very necessary. It's not adversarial, and Superintendent Nichols has done a great job keeping the folks on that road happy, for the most part. we have had one who's wanted to talk to us, but the person who was not entirely happy did convey property voluntarily, accepted our offer and conveyed the property by deed. So this has gone along as well as it could. What is before you today is to conduct a public hearing. Condemnation is a statutory proceeding. It's very detailed. You've got to comply with every step as you go forward. If you don't, you have a defective condemnation. One of the requirements is that you have a public hearing and adopt a resolution declaring your intent to acquire property rights by condemnation. That's what's before you today. And you have a copy of the resolution. So if you conduct your public hearing and after it adopt this resolution, you will have kept the process moving forward. And I would tell you that on the timing of this, you have, well, of course you have a choice, but you really need to act today, because we need to certify that we have unencumbered right-of-way to all the road rights to Vdot by late June. We need to adopt this resolution today to keep that process going forward. After today, and really today, I'll get with Wayne, and he'll send out 4 letters to these property owners. And after that, we have to wait 30 days before we can take the next step. So there's a dead air time coming. And then later on, after that 30 days has elapsed, the county will file certificates of condemnation, certificates of take, And when those are filed in the clerk's office, just like the 10 deeds that we've recorded so far, that filing will take the title to these easements and very small parcels of land, and they are very small, out of the owners and invest them in the county. So when that happens, when those 4 certificates are filed, the county will own the property interest in all 14 interests it needs. When that happens, we can certify to Vdot that we have acquired unencumbered right-of-way to all of the property that's needed for the widening and improvement of the road. Now, after the certificates are filed, or when the certificates are filed, what the county has determined to be the value of the property, a check for that amount will be deposited with the clerk of the circuit court and be there for the owners to withdraw at any time they wish. The amount that's deposited was determined, as was the amount that was paid to those other very nice 10 people who accommodated us by selling us land interest. So it was a fair process, trying to treat your taxpayers and your neighbors fairly, and the 10 that we're able to negotiate with accepted our offer. So I think it's going very well. And again, I think Paul did a terrific job, because he was a point man with contacting us. So after your public hearing, the recommendation of staff is that you adopt this resolution as presented. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone have any questions, Mr. Slade, before we open the public hearing?
This should be completed approximately how many days?
It darn well better be by June 20, because that's a deadline. We got to certify to Vdot. After today, Mr. Spain, there'll be, as I said, a 30-day dead air period, but we intend to proceed quickly after that. So that would put us, what, mid-June? It's a tight schedule, but we're going to make it.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to declare the public hearing open. Obviously, we don't have individuals here that may want to discuss it, but everyone was informed that they could write in any comments and send in, mail in any comments that they have. Mr. Carter, we have any?
I did receive one call on Friday from Mrs. King, who was one of the voluntary property owners. She was concerned now that the co-op was now going to be getting an easement across the front of her land, and she did not like that fact because they would be cutting some trees. Finally, also, she does not like where the road going into the school comes out in front of her house. As I told her, that was dictated by Vdot.
Okay. All right.
I think she also called Mr. Nichols later on that afternoon.
All right. Okay. So that being the only comment then, I'm going to declare the public hearing on this matter to be closed. So the next action we need to take is to adopt the resolution. As Mr. Slayton has indicated, we need to adopt that. That's in your packet. So we need a motion to adopt the resolution to authorize condemnation of the property. We have a motion to adopt the resolution. Any discussion? All right, Judy, I'm going to ask for a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Franklin.
Yes.
Mrs. Lundy.
Yes.
Mr. Tanner.
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Mr. Jennings.
Yes.
Mr. Hargrove.
Yes.
Mr. Wilkinson.
Yes.
Mr. Spain.
Yes.
Mr. Barr.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you. The resolution is adopted. Mr. Slayton.
Thank you.
Okay, next is the legislative committee report on the proposed solar lobbies. Mr. Tanner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Wayne had sent out some information to the committee about entering into an agreement with this lobbyist because of the ever-changing dynamics with the solar farms and our ability to get taxes and permits and other things from them. So I'm gonna let Wayne give a little more background on it, and then we'll discuss.
Yes, sir. This started about a year ago. We were during the General Assembly session of 2019. Several of the county administrators and myself were up there for several bills. We then started meeting in May of last year with the solar industry, trying to work out some agreements and some changes to state law, some of which were passed this year in General Assembly. There were some that they wanted that we went and spoke against. For example, they wanted to take away the fact that you would be able to approve the comp plan sections of solar facilities. They would just be allowed by right, and that was be it. So we ended up doing many of the changes, and we did have some help from Ms. Seward, who's a lobbyist, and another gentleman. What we're looking to do is set up, this is being led by Halifax, set up a coalition of rural counties to try to improve our ability to get more taxes from the solar facilities. The land is going to be tied up for at least 30 years, and it probably could be 50. Once it's there, the infrastructure's there, it continues just to produce without very much maintenance, as they said. And 30 years from now, it's still producing somewhere between 90 and 95% of its original capacity. With that said, we did get some laws changed, one of which is the $1,400 per megawatt. Instead of the 80% exemption, you can require them to do that, or they can agree to that as part of their approval process. That gives you a level amount of funding that's not decreasing. Under the original laws that were passed about 5 years ago, you started off at 20%, and over a 24-year period, you went down to 2% of the taxes. This way you'll have level funding. And for us, it's over a doubling of our fees over time. So that's a good thing. We also need to look at things with regards to erosion, permit fees, etc. So we think that spending the $5,000 would really, all we're looking at right now is joining the coalition or showing the interest to join, because this is a specific item that seems to, I think, would be beneficial to us in the long run. It's kind of like, as I tell people, it's like being a member of the Roanoke River Basin Association. You might pay those dues for a number of years, and then when something like the uranium mining comes up in Pennsylvania County, they're your advocate group to go with that. And I see more solar facilities coming as part of what the governor and the General Assembly have passed as their requirements for renewable energy.
All right. It is an opinion that we need to move forward with this. And anybody have any other concerns?
Well, Wayne, with the state,
pushing this hard is can they override our comprehensive plan and stuff that we already got in place by any means, or what we can do and what we can't do?
Well, that was actually one of the things that was proposed this past year at the General Assembly. It was a number of us and VACO. I want to give VACO credit. Joe Lurch has been very good to work with and keeping us all informed of when things were coming up. But there was an attempt by the solar industry to take away your comp plan review rights. That died in the Senate unanimously. So we were happy with that. There's a lot of issues going on up there, but there were over almost 20 bills this year, and that's going to continue to happen. The solar industry has a large number of lobbyists up there every day. And we feel like we can't be there every day. We need somebody up there from rural communities to help support us and VACO. And then we come in when we need to. So that's what we did last year. And there was a handful of us that were there fairly regularly.
Craig, do you feel like the General Assembly is favoring the lobbyists, or they begin to favor the counties? How do you see the pendulum swing?
Well, I think you have to realize that I'm not sure it's the lobbyists, they're very, General Assembly has changed its outlook as its new members have come in. It is very much in favor of green energy and renewable energies. So therefore, what we've got to do is try to work with the solar industry, because we're not trying to oppose it, but we feel like counties should get a bigger share of the pie. And we felt like with the 80% exemption, that we were not getting a very large slice, and the fact that it depreciated at such a rapid pace, you ended up down at 2% after year 24, and you stayed at 2% from then on. We did not feel that that was a fair tax system, since other power plants are not depreciated that fast, and the fact that the facility is still producing over 90% of its electricity 30 years after it's been installed. So I don't think so, Ms. Bain. We're trying to work with the solar industry. That's why we set up those meetings over this past summer and fall prior to the General Assembly to work out, trying to come up with, and one of the proposals was the $1,400 per megawatt. So there were a lot of things like that that we're working with them on. We're not trying to be adversarial at all. But we want it to be a win-win situation for both parties.
Okay, thank you.
And I think one of Mr. Carter's concern was too, by getting a lobbyist specific to this versus using the lobbyists we had that do several things for us, was hopefully nothing will slip through the cracks, that we'll be able to, this person will be focused directly on this, and it's changing so fast that he wants to make sure that we've got a seat at the table when it comes to laws and regulations and stuff like that. So.
Well, Wayne, the other question is the other counties, I know Halifax and us and some of the counties, a few counties is getting the bulk of these solar farms or whatever you might want to call them. I understand the green energy, but I hate to see them still all in one place in the rural area here, where especially, we are fortunate right now not being so strapped for money, but I see a lot of these surrounding counties strapped for money today, and it's really pushing them in this area in one place, so.
Well, land cost is part of it. As far north as about you've seen is the one in Spotsylvania County, which is 6,000 acres. There is one proposed in Loudon, but that's going to be at the airport at Dulles. Because of land cost up in Northern Virginia, you're never going to see them up there, not on a large scale. And they're really power plants. They're not farms, they're power plants. They're going to be in rural communities, and they prefer fairly flat lands because of being able to installation and everything else. So you're going to have this, they're going to be clustered in certain areas. Now, they can go all the way east to the Atlantic Ocean, but again, land value costs end up being a large concern. They've got a rate that they're paying right now or leasing, and they're able to keep that. So I think you're going to see us in the donut here continue to be inundated south of Richmond.
Wayne, the $1,400 per megawatt number, as you know, over 30-year time, really is not that much. I mean, I remember gas at 29 cents a gallon, it's just, so is there anything in the proposal for a step up or be reviewed maybe every 5 years or something along that line?
There currently isn't. That was some things that were discussed at some of the meetings. Our main concern was we were going from 20% to 2%. And 2% in 30 years was really nothing. I mean, we sat there and looked at them and said, what you're going to give us won't even buy us a police car. It won't even equip one by the time we got to where we're going to be in 30 years. Because we were down to almost $10,000. So it would just pay to upgrade it, not even to buy it, which we thought was unrealistic. This is a moving target. And we took the bar to here. We still feel that there's some room to negotiate to get a little bit closer to where we feel is even. But it's an ongoing negotiation. And one that we're going to talk to them more about because we do feel the same way you do, that they're 30 years from now, $100,000 will not be worth nearly what it is today. As it was 30 years ago, $100,000 was worth a lot more than it is today. So it's the same situation. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Not, I will make a motion that, I better raise my hand, that we move forward with hiring this lobbyist and being part of this coalition for the solar industry.
Okay. All right, everybody heard the motion, further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, insurance committee report, Ms. Lundy.
Yes. The insurance, the increase for this year is 1.5%. No benefit change. We got the best possible price. Ms. Judy Sheffield, she negotiated with the insurance adjuster. That's the best we could do under circumstances. If you have questions, you can contact Ms. Sheffield here at the office.
Anybody have any questions about the insurance? We don't need any kind of motion on.
Yes, so we have to accept it.
You have accepted.
Oh, okay.
And this is open enrollment, the month of May, effective July 1. And I sent that out to our employees, because normally we get to have employee meetings, needless to say, that's not gonna happen.
Right.
And I am thrilled with our renewal. It did not start out this good, and David Rowe, our consultant, he worked really hard on that. In November, we were actually at a 6.8% increase. And then we kept working it down to now we ended up at a 1.5 and absolutely no benefit change. So we are thrilled. And just so you know what that means, it will cost the county, needless to say, in our budget, it's an increase of $27,270 for the counties. But our employees, you're looking at an employee only, they will pay $1 more a pay period. A family plan, they will pay $2 more a pay period. So what a blessing. I'm so excited for our employees. But, and especially with no benefit change. But if anyone here, just so you know, open enrollment is the month of May. That is the time that we can add, you can change plans. There is no penalty whatsoever. And then it will be effective July 1.
Okay, that sounds excellent.
Yes.
Very good. Any other, Ms. Lundy, you want to make a motion that we?
I make a motion that we would accept the increase of 1.5%. And do we need to say about the budget, Ms. How much we appropriate from the budget?
No, ma'am, it's hard to see it because it's by department.
Okay.
Charge it back to each department.
Okay, well, I retract. I make a motion to adopt the increase of 1.5% for insurance for the county.
All right, heard that motion. Any further discussion on the insurance? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Carter.
Yes, sir. You have the building permits for the month. Bluestone Solar did come in and get their permit. That is a $306,000 permit. So that's where your largest percentage was. We did not get that on the Dominion project, which was Grasshopper, because they are exempt. So that's really the only one-time fee we're going to get out of that. And of course, that one will be under the 80% exemption. So we got that money this year. You have the zoning permits for the month. And animal wardens, we're still able to adopt out approximately 2/3 of the animals. So we're very pleased with that. Adoptions are up at the SPCA, I think, so people are keeping pets since they're stuck home. You've got the sheriff's report. Vdot report, it is again just maintenance forces. They are doing a lot of patching to secondary roads and repairing cross pipes that have become clogged over the last few years. So that's their biggest items. I'm sure that they'll start cutting grass here in about another month. Usually June is the time frame. Next, you have Big River Ski Club update. Big River Ski Club had a slalom course on Bluestone up at Goodale Cove. They've had that there for at least 10 years. The people who were in charge of Big River Ski Club have moved to Florida. They found no one here who was interested in it. They have removed the course, and in 1 year, that lease with the Corps that we have will become void. So we have a lease with the Corps, and then they had a sublease with us. So the course has been removed. Next, you have a request for a resolution for the Miles Bethel Memorial Christian Methodist Episcopal Church. I believe that's in Mr. Tanner's district.
Yes, sir. The church contacted me about a month ago about doing a resolution for their 150th anniversary for their church. And I told them I thought it would be a great idea to bring it before the board to celebrate any church in our area that's been here that long. It's located at 242 Regional Airport Road in Mecklenburg. So I would entertain a motion that we adopt this and celebrate them.
So we have a motion then to adopt this resolution recognizing the Miles Bethel Memorial Church anniversary. Any further discussion on that motion? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Next, Mr. Taylor's here to give you an update on the COVID-19 virus.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So since we last met, you guys have been watching the numbers that I've been showing you, and so we've gotten up to 134 cases, 10 deaths associated with the COVID, and 23 hospitalizations, and that's a total accumulated number. I look for this to continue to rise, as you might have seen over the past couple of days. There is a new outbreak, and that outbreak is in another long-term care facility. So the more testing that they do there, I look for that to continue to go up as well. In Southside District itself, there are 4 outbreaks, and of that, they're showing 99 cases that are associated with those 4 outbreaks. And Southside Health District is Halifax, Mecklenburg, and Brunswick. An outbreak, in their definition, is 2 or more positive cases that are not in a family setting. So if, a long-term care facility, a healthcare environment, congregate living facility, things like that. Let's see, we talked about that. In the Commonwealth as a whole, just to give you an idea as to what's going on, if you haven't seen it in the news, there are 268 outbreaks in the Commonwealth as a whole, and 160 of those at long-term care facilities. So when you look at the numbers that jump up and how our numbers have jumped up when they started with testing in those areas, you can see how that's affecting the numbers over the whole state. We do have positives in the community that are not tracing back to the long-term care facilities. On an average, we're showing around, this is an average showing the long-term care facilities and everybody. On an average, we're showing around 45 cases that are ongoing at a time. So you see that 134 number as our total, but we're carrying about 45 plus cases ongoing at a time. Some roll off, more come on, but that's the average. It seems to stay at the moment. Other things that we've been doing here to help for the COVID is and when we last met, I told you guys we were working on trying to get supplies for law enforcement, EMS, and fire departments so that they can respond to people who have COVID in these incidents without them themselves getting sick. And knock on wood, so far we've been lucky with the providers and not having to have any really quarantine. And some we had quarantine, not for very long when, tests come back showing that they really weren't in connection with any of that. And some of the supplies we've been able to accumulate are mask, surgical mask, KN95s and N95 masks, wipes, hand sanitizer, things like that. We've had partners to step up and help us out with some of those things and been very helpful to us on that. The biggest thing that anybody is having problems getting right now are isolation gowns. So, it's been advised to all of the police, fire, and rescues that if they come in contact with somebody that they know is known or has a pretty good chance to do personal hygiene, shower, redress into some other different clothes, have those washed just to decontaminate themselves to reduce that chance. Some of the cases that we have, that has from the outbreaks, has affected other counties. So the total 134 number you see kind of crosses the borders from the other counties around us. And really, if they all lived in our county, the people that work at some of these outbreaks, our number would be higher than what it is. So it is in the setting, it is, in the community. Some of it is not being traced back to these large outbreaks. And that's the picture of what the reality of it is. That's all I've got to report.
So what is the percentage of our cases that's actually traceable to the long-term care facility?
It's a pretty high percent, but some of those workers, they don't stay at that facility. So they go home or, and supposed to isolate at home, whether they go out at all or anything and have any contact with anybody else is nobody really knows.
Probably about 2/3. When you say, John, total?
2/3 or more.
I think it's very important for the public to know that because, I've heard and seen some comments about, what in the world's going on in Mecklenburg County. So I think the citizens need to know that number because, so they won't have this perception that we've got some massive outbreak that's, going all over the whole county. I think
right.
It's important that they know that. So, okay. Anybody have any more questions of John?
John, you said last meeting, if I recall, that I had asked you about were you tracing the recovery numbers?
Right.
And at the time, I believe you said that you weren't. People, but
what
I heard, you're having 45. You say some are coming off. So could you explain that?
Yeah, as much as I can. I started off tracing that, and some of y'all saw that in the numbers where I was saying that so many were off the list or recovered or whatever. The difficulty comes in the reporting from the first long-term care facility outbreak that we had. There's some blurriness in the numbers and what's off and what's on and what's still there. And that is not being reported on an individual basis. So any number that I could tell you at that point would, until that gets cleared up, which I don't know if it ever will be cleared up, I can't give you an accurate number as to how many have actually come off that list and stayed off the list. They have retested some that were on the list before and they have come back positive again. And not getting some, from what I understand, is not getting some very good information from some places and it's very blurry. One in particular.
So when we get these massive numbers, they don't give you John Doe, Jane Doe, whatever. It's 4 people. And so it's hard for us to keep up and for them to.
Well, I just know nationally, I saw on one of the news channels that there were 200 and, I don't know, I'm gonna say 232,000 that had recovered, given the number for the United States that had been infected and so forth and so on.
Even the head of the health department was asked that question on one of the governor's press briefings, and he said that they're just not tracking it. I mean, I think that there's a way to track it if you have cooperation from all the parties, the facilities and everybody to report to the health department the correct way or in a nice way. And I'm not sure that that's actually happening in some cases. And we just happen to be in one of those spots that would not make my numbers accurate if I would try to tell you that.
Any other questions? Thank you, John, appreciate it.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Sure.
I have a question for the sheriff. Being that less people traveling, what does the traffic count look like now for traffic citation?
Oh, we're not making any traffic stops. Unless it's a very serious violation. The traffic is way down. People are staying at home. We have made some stops for DUI and for reckless driving, excess of 100. There have been some, but my guys are pretty much as a whole not enforcing minor traffic violations.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions of Mr. Carter? Okay. All right, we've got a number of appointments that we need to deal with this morning. The first one is Mr. Harrison Inch on the Board of Zoning Appeals has resigned due to health reasons. Does anyone have someone they wish to appoint to replace Mr. Inch?
I said at the last meeting that I had an individual, and Mr. Carter, did you receive his bio?
Yes, sir. I think should have been sent out.
It was in there. It's in there.
Okay. And I would like to appoint him to that position. Chris Terry, I believe his name is.
Who is it? I'm sorry.
Chris Terry.
Chris Terry?
Yes, sir.
Anyone else have nominations? If not, all in favor of appointing Mr. Chris Terry to the Board of Zoning Appeals, say aye. Sbcc Board of Directors, Ms. Amanda Bowen, her term expires June 30th, and she does not wish to be reappointed. Have we received any bios or any information on that? Mr. Carter, do you know?
No, sir. So you could postpone this until next month while y'all try to find someone to serve on that board.
Yeah, be thinking about that. It's pretty important position. So we'll table that appointment until our June meeting. Next, the term of Mr. Josh Hatchell on Southside Virginia Alcohol Safety Action Program. Actually expired May the 8th. He is eligible for reappointment. I think we got a letter from them, did we not?
We did.
Mr. Hatchell is a well-respected member of the board and has done a great job. And they, in our letter, requesting that he be reappointed, which he is eligible for. So,
Move to reappoint Mr. Hatchell, Mr. Chairman.
okay. All right. We have a motion to reappoint Mr. Hatchell to this board. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The term of Mr. Charlie Ramey on the County Planning Commission expires at the end of May. He is eligible for reappointment.
Mr. Chairman, I talked to Mr. Charlie Raymond. He did want to serve again. So I'll nominate Mr. Raymond for the county planning commission position.
All right, motion to, reappoint Mr. Charlie Reamy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Also, Mr. Kyle Crump, his term on the planning commission will expire June the 30th. He's also eligible for reappointment.
Mr. Chairman, I talked to Cal and he said he would run again.
Okay.
I can nominate him.
Okay, all right. All in favor of the reappointment of Mr. Crump, say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Dave Williams, term on the Lake Country Regional Airport Commission expires June the 30th. He is eligible for reappointment. Is anyone?
Motion to approve.
Yeah, we have a motion to reappoint Mr. Dave Williams. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The term of Mr. Elton Brown of the Lake Gas and Weed Control Council will expire on June the 30th. He's eligible for reappointment. I spoke with him the other day, and he would like to be reappointed. He's served on this board for a long time. It's been an integral part of that. So,
Remember to please raise your hands.
oh, okay. So,
Virginia.
I would like to nominate Mr. Elton Brown to be reappointed to the Weed Control Council. So, all in favor of that motion, please raise your hand. Thank you. The term of Ms. Ramona Field on the Mecklenburg County Library Board will expire June 30th. She's eligible for reappointment.
Motion to reappoint.
Well, yeah, we've not heard that she doesn't want to.
Right.
That's
Move her
good.
along.
Motion to reappoint.
So we have a motion to reappoint Ms. Field. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The term of Ms. Frances Clark on the Southside Community Services Board expires June the 30th. She is also eligible for reappointment.
Ms. Clark's been a longtime member of the board.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we reappoint.
Motion to reappoint Mrs. Clark. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Everybody's.
The term of Mr. Randy Spain on the Welfare Board expires June 30th. He is eligible for reappointment.
Move to appoint Mr. Spain to the Welfare Board.
All right, motion to reappoint Mr. Spain. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Term of Mr. Jim Jennings on the SRPSA will expire June the 30th. He is eligible for reappointment.
Mr. Chairman, I'm motion to re-support Mr. Jim Jennings back to the position FP.
Motion to reappoint Mr. Jennings. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You didn't talk with Mr. Jennings.
We didn't give him a voice in the matter. The term of Mr. Sterling Wilkinson, also on the SRPSA will expire June 30th. He is eligible for reappointment.
Mr. Chairman, I'm motion Mr. Wilson be reappointed back to the SRPS board again.
Heard the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Term of Mr. David Brinkley as an alternate on the SRPSA will expire June 30th. He is eligible for reappointment.
Move to appoint Mr. Franklin as alternate on the SRPSA, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Motion to reappoint Mr. Brinkley. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Jennings.
Term of Mr. Wayne Carter as an alternate on the SRPSA expires June 30th. He is eligible for reappointment.
Move to appoint Mr. Carter for alternate on the SRPSA.
Motion to reappoint Mr. Carter. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, we've got the no-wig zone ordinance, that we recently adopted, and it indicates that we would be forming a Mecklenburg County Lake Advisory Committee. The committee will be made up of Mr. Carter, Robert Henry, and 6 others from lake districts. They can be either one of us or planning commission representative. Has anybody given any thoughts to that?
Mr. Chairman, I have spoke with Landon Hayes from my district, and he's willing to serve on it.
Okay. We need, 6 total, right, Mr. Carter?
Yes, sir. 6 of you all are on the committee, and you would have to appoint Mr. Hendricks and myself to the committee also.
All right, so right now we do have, Mr. Carter, Mr. Hendrick, and, Mr. Landon Hayes. You want to make a motion to appoint them?
Yes, sir. I will make that motion to appoint those.
We have a motion to appoint those 3. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
So we need, we'll need 3 more. Just
5 more, but it's actually,
5.
the only members who don't get to appoint would be yourself, Mrs. Lundy, and Mr. Jennings. None of y'all's districts cover the lakes.
Let me say that again.
None of our districts.
They're not lake districts.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so the members on the committee were 6 board members who go on either Lake Gaston or Carr Lake. The 3 board members who do not are Mr. Jennings, yourself, Mr. Chairman, and Ms. Lundy. So the other 5 of you need to either appoint yourself or your planning commission member. We do have 1 application pending from the folks in Hawtree Creek. We can't take any action upon that until the committee has been formed.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we, since these other districts join the lakes, that we appoint Mr. Brankley, Mr. Tanner, Mr. Spain, Mr. Jones, Mr. Hargrove, and Mr. Wilkinson to that committee.
Point of order, sir. Mr. Tanner already appointed his planning commission member.
Yeah, Mr. Hayes is willing to do it. So however y'all want to do it.
Okay.
So, Mr. Franklin, Mr. Spain, Mr. Jones, Mr. Wilkerson, Mr. Hargrove. Right? Did I get that?
Hey, but you need 1 more, right?
No, sir. That'd be it.
That'd be it.
We got
Okay.
Mr. Hayes, so that could.
Okay.
All right, so
Man, that'll be good.
you've heard that motion to appoint these board members to the Lake County, Mecklenburg County Lake Advisory Committee. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you all. Okay. I think we made our way through that. We have a consent calendar in your packet. Hope you've had an opportunity to review that. If there are no questions concerning the consent calendar, need a motion to adopt it as presented.
Chairman, motion we adopt consent calendar as presented.
You've heard that motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes our regular agenda items. Mr. Carter, any public comments that were sent in?
No, sir, none.
All right, so we'll move on to board member matters, and Ms. London, we'll start with you.
Okay, glad to be back with you all. I would like to thank Wayne Carter and the staff for a great job they did on the budget. I talked to him recently, maybe not a week ago, a couple of days ago. And I was very excited because they had no tax increase for the citizens, and they are very happy also. I also contacted Deacon Samuel Walker about the noise with the cannons. We had a resolution last month, I believe it was. I talked with him on Saturday. He said there have not been any more noise since they appeared before the board in March. So that's a blessing, so they can sleep at night. Thank you.
Thank you. Franklin?
Oh, well, just hope by the time we get together again, maybe we'll be getting somewhat closer to normal and all. And again, just like Ms. Lundy said about the budget, I think Wayne, that staff did a real good job with that. I did notice that some of the surrounding counties were kind of putting off the taxes a little later and stuff like that, because I noticed it's all gone down. But I assume that if somebody's got a problem or something with this losing a job, you would continue to do like you've always done, kind of work with them a little bit.
Sure, and quite frankly, we have had maybe a handful of calls from people that were just asking if there going to be any kind of exemptions, or we're moving our due date. Not that they were upset about it, they were just asking. So we always want any citizen who calls if they can't pay. And we are also at this point not doing any aggressive collections. We're not doing any more wage liens, we're not doing any more DMV stops. Right now, just because everyone's struggling, so the ones that were in place prior to this pandemic, we left those. But we're not doing any additional ones, for the time being. So we may see some slight decrease in our tax collections, but I think that's just to be expected. And if people call with concerns and they need time to pay, then we will do a good payment plan.
I would assume the key thing is that they, don't wait till past due to call in earlier.
Well, that would be very helpful,
Yeah.
yes.
And it's just like the existing DMV stops. The one she had in prior to this, she hasn't removed. She just hasn't added any since that time.
Right.
But they had already not paid their taxes if they had a previous DMV stop.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. That's all.
I have a question. Being that you're not pushing, will there be late penalty for those that cannot make it in by the 5th, or would there be waiver or?
No, sir, it will not be waived. That is an ordinance that the county
Okay.
has. So unless the ordinance will change, we don't have the authority to do that. Also, the Code of Virginia, delineates that penalty and interest must occur. And the only way that it does not occur is if it is no fault of the taxpayer. So, that's really the only wiggle room we have.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Mr. Franklin had said, thank you to Wayne, thank you to all our county employees. I know they've been doing a lot of hard work with the budget and other things that are going on. Thank you too to our first responders and our police and the medical providers. You know, everybody's been out here working hard through all this. And as it is National Police Week, Bobby, thank you to the Sheriff's Office and all our police departments. Also, I want to take a minute to congratulate all of the graduates from Parkview, Bluestone, colleges, other places. I know this has been a crazy year and finished today, senior years and stuff like that, but we still want to take time to congratulate all of them. Thank you to our teachers and school system too. I know Mr. Nichols and all the teachers have worked hard to finish out this year and get everything straightened out, and hopefully next year will be a totally different beast. And I know we're all looking forward to getting back to some type of normalcy. Hopefully by next month we'll all be there, but I just hope everyone will stay safe and be healthy.
Thank you. Absolutely. Ms. Jenny?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I first want to tell you how sorry I am about the passing of your father. Just want to mention you that. I don't know what to say. I don't know kind of where we are, where we're going. I don't think anybody else does now. In unemployment, 14.7%, highest it's been since the Depression. Some analysts are saying it's going to go to 20%. Federal government's got a tremendous amount of debt, most debt they've ever had, printing money. We're just going to be looking, after this is over with, we're going to be looking at double-digit inflation in 3 to 4 years. That's coming. And it's a real problem going on in this country right now. And I don't know if anybody has the correct answers to it, because it's just so uncharted area that we've never been in. And, you make a decision today, it may be the right decision based on what you know today. And a month from now, it was the wrong decision based on what's going on right now. So I hope everything kind of turns around. I don't want to preach doom and gloom, but this is some bad stuff going on right now. And not only the pandemic and all that, but it's just the economic situation that it's created, not only in this country, but in the world. That's all I've got to say, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, we definitely just fell off a cliff, didn't we?
Yeah.
Mr. Hargrove?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I heard Mr. Jennings say he don't want to preach doom and gloom, but I'm here to encourage hope. So there's always hope that as we go forth in the future, things will be better. It's left to us to make that change. We change our attitudes and our hearts. I believe the country will come on straight in due time. And there's nothing in history that has not already happened. just have to pattern ourselves in a better way of recovery. But I also have an issue that for as much money as supposed to be not in circulation on jobs, but I want to give kudos to our frontline work as well, the nurses and so forth, the doctors and the policemen. But I also find that in our dumpsters, we are having some severe problems for not to have much money in circulation. I'm finding that there are people that are buying couches and mattresses and all kinds of stuff, and you know, I mean, furniture is just galore, and our time for the pickup has drawn slower because of personnel, and people begin to complain. Now we're having vultures that are hanging around the dumpsters in areas that they used to not hang because they overload the dumpsters, and so they come in and they tear bags to pieces, and I feel for our workers because see, once they leave there, each time the place is pristine. They have the place all cleaned up. Even they go to the dish lines and above to clean it to make sure that it's presentable. And when they do that, it prolongs the time. So I want to give kudos to those workers as well because they work hard. They're working even harder now to try to satisfy the public, but yet the public is still dumping a lot of stuff on them. And so again, there's hope, there's a future, and as long as there's light, then we'll get through it. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Rose.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to start with, I was glad to see we got the lobbyist for the solar industry. I feel like it's going to be an industry to stay for a while. And it really is a no-brainer to hire somebody like that. I mean, we have to do that. You know, everybody's got their opinions on the solar industry, but it is inevitable, I believe, going forward. And we just got to be on top of that in the positions we need to be. And Mr. Douglas, I enjoyed the update on the school you sent out. That was very informative, and I think it keeps everybody involved. Because we just ride down 58 and you can't see a whole lot. But I appreciate that and look forward to some more. And just going back on, you know, what Mr. Jennings said about how tough things are now, but this isn't going way too quick on the economic side. We really need to be vigilant on our, you know, positions and moves going forward because there are going to be some tougher times. I mean, it's really a trickle down effect. You know, somebody's going to pay for all this money we're spending as the debt they have. And it's just going to be a trickle down effect all the way to County Road, from the federal, state, all the way down. It's going to be less and less that it's going to happen. So we're going to have to really be on top of this. So that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jones.
I just like to say that everybody needs to be aware probably in the next month. You know, our lakes are going to be full of boaters, socializing and coming in contact with each other. I don't know how much distancing can be done on a boat, but you know, we're getting ready to bust wide open here. People, you know, they can't stay inside forever. It's just our nature that we need to be around other people, and that we would hopefully keep in mind some basic things such as washing your hands and maybe being aware of who you're around or who the people you're around, who they've been around, and take that into consideration, especially if you have a member of your family that is elderly and needs special care. Also, when we were talking about the debt, we need to kind of keep in mind, you know, who's buying our country's debt. And that's Japan's number one, China's right behind them. And as we keep printing this money, those are the ones that are going to be the note holders. And I hope that we can somehow or another work things out where that doesn't become an issue with these countries that we have conflicts with. And that's about it.
Good morning to the board. It's just good to see each of you. With the coronavirus going around, people leaving here, so good to see your smiling faces. The things is alive and well. That means a lot. We're in a lot. And sometimes we don't appreciate each other until something happens. So it's important. Thank you superintendent for giving us that virtual tour of what is going on, and he indicated that he will keep us posted. So yes, we're concerned how they're working and moving forward. And also the John keeping us posted almost daily concerning Mecklenburg County, and my family said, Glenn, what's going on? Why are so many cases? We thank him for updating us on what is going on. Thank all the first responders, sheriff also. Thank our staff that Mecklenburg County still is okay. No drastic front page news on Mecklenburg County. So I'm pleased that things are well as they are. It will take all of us to get through with this. Yes, Mr. Jennings, I'm glad you brought that up. That is a big concern. And I can see it growing more as time go by with our economic. You know, it's some unprecedented time to going on. And it's gonna take all of us to stay watchful concerning our spending. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, board members, for all those comments. I would, any comments that I would have to make would just be redundant. Point out some very important things. I do want to extend my family's gratitude to the board for reaching out to us after my father's death. As you all know, he was in a long-term care facility here in the county, and we actually never got to see my father after my mother passed away because of the lockdown of the facility. So my dad didn't, I tell people my dad didn't die from the coronavirus, he died because of it. And my family will always believe that because he was alienated from his family, that it was played a crucial role in his death. But anyway, being a Christian as I am, I know where he is. He knows now what the circumstances were. I don't think he probably really understood that, you know, then, but he does understand it now. And so, anybody needs to take a break before we go forward?
Yeah, took a 5-minute break.
Need a little break.
You mean you straight up to turn it over?
Yes, sir, just send You getting sound now? Yeah. Okay. Based upon retirement, our retirement went from our percentage 8.99 to 10.7, and a 1.7% increase. We're still below what schools pay, but that's where you're seeing the change throughout these on departments is going to be in that. And of course, if anyone changes insurance. County attorney, I did go up on that based upon the fact that we do have, for example, the school condemnations, Old Cox Road, different projects from reassessments, et cetera. Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Each person keep up with the iPad concerning county administrator.
Yeah, I do have a few paper packets if anybody wants it.
Each person watching it, each person got it on the iPad.
I got it.
Okay, page 3.
I'm sorry, Mr. Brown.
Okay, administrator.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway.
Yes, sir. Page 4 is going to be the county attorney, so there is an increase there. If you look, we're on line to spend all that this year. We do have several taken care of through that. 5, Commissioner Revenue. They do have several clerks, I think 4, who've gotten their certification this year. He's still 9. We did cut phones $10,000 from what we had in the years past, based upon the fact that we're going and modernizing our phone, and new phones should be cheaper to operate. Correct? Yeah. Yeah. I keep looking at Alex and Judy, and they keep looking at me and back and